not aware. Okay, so one of the pieces of work for this week is for you to do your learning agreement on PebblePad. And this reflects what you'll be asked to do ahead of placement. So when you go on placement, it'll be expected that you have identified your learning needs for that placement. So this is about recognising, okay, this is what the PCF says, identifying what your current level of knowledge and skills are, and your learning needs sit in the middle. How am I, how am I going to get to this end of, readiness for direct practice level of the professional capability framework? So what were some of the things that you thought about in terms of which areas of the PCF you might have felt, okay, that's going to be a learning need for me? So there were 9 domains: professionalism, values and ethics, rights, justice, economic well-being. Yeah, thank you, saving me. I'm trying to remember all of these things. My font brain. Professionalism. Okay. So recognising that, there might be some elements that you feel, okay, I'm kind of down with that, but actually professionalism is going to be the thing. It's going to be cool. So make a note of that, and that'll go on your learning agreement. There'll probably be others who are thinking, yeah, I'm okay with the professionalism, but actually there might be other things. Lizzie. Yes. Okay. Yes.
The legal part, I'm aware of that. I'm aware that there is the law practitioners that I think we need to know about.
Yes.
Knowledge.
Yes.
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 So I know that we're very new to it, but I'm aware of that.
Yeah, and I guess the one that's a bit challenging at this stage is the knowledge one. So the knowledge domain, because I guess the knowledge domain relates more to the more traditional modules that you'll be doing. You've just started. So, you don't even do law until next semester. Yeah. It's on the PebblePad, yeah. Yeah, learning needs. Yeah, further down. Students' learning needs. Okay. Yeah? So this is exactly what you'll have to do before you go on placement. Identify against the PCF what your learning needs are. And just to say, having been a practice educator, I am not expecting students to come out and go, oh, well, I don't really have any learning needs. Like that, if you think you tip-top at everything, that's when my alarm bells start to ring. Yeah? I'm much more confident if somebody says, okay, I'm good at that, but I know, like for example, I know professionalism's that area, because it shows a level of kind of self-awareness, yeah, that none of us are perfect. So have a think. So for some of you, it might be like that you're feeling really anxious about the skills bit. It might, for some of you, be more about the knowledge bit. As Lizzie said, it might be professionalism. So have a think about that and identify your learning needs. And I will have a look at those. It's really helpful for me to have a sense of whether there are any particular areas that people are feeling more anxious about. Okay. So how are you in terms of digital professionalism? So is there anyone in the room that feels anxious about the digital bit? Or are people generally fairly confident on digital technology? Fairly confident. Fab. The BA group, there was a lot of wobbles about the digital technology bit. Okay.
I'm used to the liquid logic and all that in my last class.
Fabulous. You'll have lots to impart today then, Saji.
I have logged into Chance.
Yes.
It's a bit different, but still. So that
There's commonalities. There's commonalities about it. Yeah. Okay, fab. And this list is from the work that Baswa and Sky did that we talked about, so the digital capability statement. So they spoke about that social workers will come into contact with these kind of digital technologies. So electronic systems, hardware and software to facilitate day-to-day work of social workers, email, electronic recording systems that we'll be thinking about today, and business software. Online resources for professionals and people using services, for example, apps and websites. That as social workers, you'll need to be fairly confident on using those things, but also advising the people you work with as well of what might be helpful for them. Assistive technologies. Does anyone have any examples of any ideas of assistive technology that social workers? Hearing aids, absolutely fabulous. So there are assistive technologies that will enable people to participate or engage who otherwise might not. Yeah? So hearing aids is a great example. Talking pads, yes, yes. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Somebody's non-verbal, then they have like an iPad where it has like pictures or words and things to communicate that way.
Yes. So again, it's about access, isn't it? Yeah? Okay, good. What else?
Healthcare equipment.
Yeah. Some examples, Saji?
Yeah, like medicine dispenser.
Yes. Yes. So dispensers, the...
Just checking. Mats.
Yeah, mats. Yes.
Yeah, the falling.
Yes.
To detect the falling.
Yes. There's a whole range of assistive technologies that are used to enable people to live independently. Yeah, sorry? Alexa, yeah. So yes, so, you know, I remember my granddad, he had a pendant alarm, he had a mat in his bed so that if he got up in the night and was away from bed for a longer period of time than would ordinarily take for him to go to the toilet, it would raise an alarm so that if he fell, he wouldn't be left all night, yeah? So these are technologies that are used to enable people to be either independent or to engage in their services. So a whole range. Now, obviously, it'll be dependent on what area of practice you go into, of what assistive technologies you're going to need to know about confidently. You know, sometimes we kind of turn our nose up at technology, you know, things aren't the same as they used to be, but actually there are a whole range of things that make life way better for us. Social media and social networking interfaces, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Skype. Does that even exist anymore? Skyped for a long time. WhatsApp. So some of those social media platforms, again, to enable you to communicate with people where that might be the best means of doing so. Informatics and the use of data reports and analytics to monitor and improve services. Sounds a bit dull, doesn't it, in some respects? But can be really, really important in terms of showing levels of deprivation, levels of need maybe, maybe more used by managers, but it's also something that as a member of staff you might need to be aware of. Hardware, mobile devices and web-enabled laptops, and online learning we've talked about. So these are all the things. So again, in terms of thinking about that learning need thing, is there any of those areas that you think, well, yeah, I'm confident generally in technology, but I don't know much about assistive technology. I could do with, you know, doing a bit of research about that. Okay. So digital literacy is something, and this is the digital capability statement that we talked about. So it is something that is an expectation of BASWA and Sky, that you have that level of digital capability. So have a look, have a think if there's anything like any of the Microsoft tools that maybe you're not au fait with. I won't be teaching it. So if there's any of those things like Outlook, PowerPoint, Teams, OneDrive, any of those things that you think, I'm not that confident with, how would you address that knowing that I'm not going to teach you? Any ideas? YouTube videos.
Getting help,
Yes. So again, if you're identifying, oh yeah, I've never done that, you know, there's lots of stuff online that will help, and it's generally a case of having a go, playing around with the tool. Maybe finding a member of the group who's happy for you to set up a meeting just to kind of practice, or how do I record meetings or whatever, that you could do that. So include that on your learning needs if you identify anything. So, online recording systems. So as Saji said, Worcestershire use Liquid Logic. Charms was developed really in independent foster agencies. So it's used in a lot of independent fostering agencies, but it is also used in some local authorities as well. But you'll probably notice when you use it, you probably see bits that think, oh yeah, that's because it comes from fostering background. But we've got it as a training aid. So all of the people on Charms are fictitious people. And at times you will be finding referral forms on there, responding to the referral, and then updating the system on your contact with people. So we will be using that. So if you're not on Charms, do please follow that up, because we will be using it as we go along. There's a whole range of other electronic recording systems that you'll come across depending on what local authority you go into. There's only one agency that I'm aware of that still uses a paper-based system, so it will be electronic. Okay, so in terms of how electronic recording systems are set up, there are a series of individual records, but they will be linked. So, for example, if you've got an adult on the system who's accessed adult services, but they also have a child that's maybe open to children's services, those records can be linked. Okay. So there's benefits and limitations to that, I guess. So just to be clear, when I'm talking about recording, I'm talking about case recording. Okay? Case recording traditionally was something that social workers did for themselves and their own practice, but over the years it's become something that's much more about accountability and continuity for the people who use services. It's not just a tool for you to remember what you're doing with someone. It's much more than that. So any contact, any activity in relation to somebody accessing services will need to be put on the system, whether that's be you've just taken a phone call for a colleague, you'll need to put that on the system and record it as a progress update. Okay. How easy is it to amend a record, Saji, if you've made a bit of a mistake? Do you have it? I'm sure you don't.
Yeah. I didn't have the access to write, but still, so you can go to the documents.
Okay.
So okay. if you are authorized to do.
So I guess certain managers have the right to modify a record. Yeah. Okay.
So, because sometimes the statements, like maybe when verifying, they contradict and then you have to change.
Yes. So it's not necessarily as easy a process for you as an individual member of staff. So I guess that highlights the importance of trying to get it right as far as you can when you're first making a record. So
I don't think you can edit on Liquid Logic anymore. It's not even IT can change. The only thing you can do is to put another case note on
a new record.
Case note on. You can't take it off anymore. You're on Liquid not anymore.
Which I guess kind of I understand why, really. Because we'll think a little bit later about the benefits and limitations of electronic recording systems, but we'll come on to that. Okay. But what I want you to do is to have a bit of a practice.
I understand that service users have the right for their privacy.
Yes.
Now, in case of recording, don't you think you are really violating their privacy?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We could have a long debate about privacy and human rights. You talked about human rights earlier. So in terms of recording, you should, as somebody accessing a service, you should be made aware that a record will be made for you, and therefore you're consenting to it.
And if they decline, if they refuse you recording, then
what do you do? You probably wouldn't get a service.
Do you have the right to see this?
Yes.
If you are
Yes.
involved, isn't it? If we are involved in the case, isn't it?
Yes.
As a professional, if we are not involved, we are not able to
Yes, yes. I'm guessing what Keely's talking about is if the record's about you.
Yeah, can I read it?
Yes. Yes, unless there is a risk to you or somebody else of you reading that record. So there might be situations where, for example, I don't know, let's go for the child protection arena, right?
Yeah.
If there's a risk of you reading your record or finding out, I don't know, that someone's shared some information about you that's going to put them at risk or something, then it might be or redacted, where you get it back, but you have big bits of big black lines.
Yeah, like, what is this?
Because you'd be filling in those gaps, wouldn't you? Like, yeah. So you do have a right of access. You have to apply for access, and there is one of the pieces of learning you've got on PebblePad is listening to a podcast from a couple of guys who were in the looked after system and their experience of getting their records back, and it's quite a powerful listen, which is why recording is really important. Quite often social workers see it as the dull bit of the job, the boring bit of the job. I want to be interacting with people and making a difference. But actually, it's really fundamental to good practice, is getting some good principles of recording. Yes, so it's interesting, this whole idea around confidentiality and access to data records. There's increasingly an expectation, particularly in certain areas of practice, children and families particularly, where actually you don't have a lot of rights to the privacy of your data and your information. You certainly don't if there's a view that your children might be at risk, and I kind of understand why that would be the case. But actually, even when you're looking at lower levels of concern, you can't necessarily expect the privacy of the information that you share.
It went really far. Get rid of it in court one day as well, didn't it? Potentially records.
Of course. Yeah. So really, really important that we're careful about how we do it. So what I want you to do, so I'm going to want you to get onto charms. So I know some of you might be struggling, so I tell you what, if people are on charms, could they put their hand up?
What, have you already signed on?
If you can get on charms right now, yeah? Get on charms and pop your hand up, and then we can make sure people have a chance to have a bit of a look at the system. Yeah?
Me, but I'm not my phone, so.
Okay. So we've got a few. I have inevitably, knowing that some people wouldn't be able to get on, I have brought some hard copies. Have either of you two on?
I'm about to try again. I'm trying to see if it can work.
Okay, so people are trying to get on now.
Yesterday it didn't work,
So there's a link. Make sure you go in via the link on Blackboard, because that will take you to the University of Worcester Charms site. It looks like there's not many people on here on charms. So, for those who are on charms, could you try searching for a record called Jemima Slater? In the families bit. Jemima Slater.
So on charms, do we log in with our unique email, isn't it? Or this one? Password?
Yes, it's your university email and then your password.
Your password from there.
Yes, and then a passcode will come in. Like drop down.
Try again.
Yeah, try again.
Daniel, 626. Let's see if it works. You went to forget password?
Yeah.
So you guys could have a look at the QX if you're on your chair around just to kind of see how it looks. So you're looking for a record for Jemima Slater. You've got our password.
It's your email, and then you need to find your name or
So what?
I got my email wrong.
So, have a look and see if you can find Jemima Slater's record. Just that first name. That's it. Yeah. So, if you found Jemima's record, there should be two different records of the same thing. Okay, two files.
Follow up on the files. Where is the Jemima? I think third slide.
Have you found it?
That's next, right?
You found it?
Jemima, spell it.
Just type in Jemima, like Jemima.
Jemima Slater.
Let me show you something.
Jemima Slater.
Anyone who doesn't have access to charts, I do have
It doesn't
support.
look, it doesn't.
So have a look at these two, and I want you to have a read and discuss the two different records. Yeah, so that's it. So I just want you to compare and contrast those two records.
So let's see.
Anyone else need hard copies? Yeah. Ah, you're on. Good. Well done.
Yeah, we open both files. They're probably listed. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Fabulous. Go back to your video. This one has you guys need hard copies. You will need to keep going. There's a few different records for you to have a read and have a discussion about the differences. Okay, you got the answer there? Okay. So have have a look at those two records and have a chat with the person next to you about what your view is of the two records. Okay, has everyone had a chance to have a look? Is anyone still working their way through that? Okay, fab. So there's two records. One was shorter than the other, but I just would welcome some feedback on those two records.
The longer one is more strength-based.
The longer one feels more strengths-based, okay? Yeah?
The longer one has got structure, history, and more detail.
Okay, so more detail, more structure.
The longer one.
Longer
Is that
one.
what we're calling it?
The longer one.
It just gives more information, so if somebody else was having to pick it up, it wasn't a case of her parents not being able to pick it up anymore because of behaviour. It was, a chronic heart condition. It really gives more detail in things that happen, like the workshop closing down with the enjoyed.
So it gives much more in terms of continuity for someone else picking that up, yeah?
So,
Lizzie?
The longer one is a bit more factual, and the shorter one I found a bit more emotional,
Okay,
and like emotions attached to how she was.
okay,
More negative.
okay. So the shorter one felt a little bit more emotional, a bit more negative?
Yeah.
Was it, sorry, can you?
The longer one is much more professional.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting.
So you've got a perception of actually much more of a professional, yeah? Okay.
And the number one talks about how she's feeling, saying that she's emotionally frustrated, she's reminding like she's aggressive, it's not things about her as a person.
Yes, yes. So I guess the second one is more attributing the behaviour to a feeling or an experience as opposed to labelling the person.
It's a
Yeah.
bit safer for her to read that, isn't it?
Certainly if you think about Jemima reading either of these, I would guess you would be much more comfortable with that one.
She said she's sound with this relationship now, that one. The
Yeah.
longer one.
Yes, yeah.
So the longer one's more objective and the short one's more subjective with the language that they use. It's more personal and a bit
Okay.
dramatic.
Okay. Okay.
I think the second one is just a summary of the first one part of the first one. Because if you looking at the three paragraphs, the first and second one it speaks more about the lady Jemima. The second one is just about personality, moving from a printing press to a resource center, which you didn't like. But the second one doesn't have much details. It's just a summary. It doesn't really have any information different from what's in the first
Yes.
thing. It doesn't have anything special or something new to it. It's just a summary to me.
Yes, yes. So if it had a different purpose, you might feel that summary is appropriate. But actually, in terms of getting a fuller picture, the longer one is
More detailed.
better and more detailed.
Spoke
Yeah?
about more.
Jim?
I think the longer one presents someone with challenges, while the shorter one presents someone who is problematic.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of what that means for the response, it could be quite significant, couldn't it? What do you think? How do you think the response might differ based on which of these versions you read? Do you think a member of staff picking those up might respond differently?
If that was a care plan,
Already biased.
Scared?
If I should work with a person in that short one,
Sure.
I have some kind of anxiousness in me because the person is more aggressive, and then I've got to be very careful how I'm gonna, engage some intervention. But then with the longer ones, it's more positive, and then you're looking at the strength of that person. That's
Yes.
more appealing to work with such a person.
Yes.
I think the first one justifies why her behavior has changed. Because from where she was working previously to the new one justifies why, because she was more open and friendly with other services in the previous home
Yes.
and where she was working. But the new place, which was the resource center, was more professional for her. So she was, in this chapter, she was categorized as being bossy, but she wasn't. It's just that she was being assertive looking at
Yes.
it.
Yes. Yes. So I guess the longer version identifies maybe some of the structural difficulties that might have impacted on Jemima, feeling frustrated, whereas the first one didn't. It was very much locating that within her, that actually she was aggressive or whatever, as opposed to recognising actually, through no fault of her own, this service has closed and it's had an impact. So there could be quite considerable differences in how Jemima is perceived based on which of these versions you read. Yeah. Okay, good, thank you. Well done for those who did manage to navigate the CHARMS system. We will think a little bit more about the benefits and limitations of that, but we'll have a little bit of a comfort break, so people happy with like 10 minutes? Yes. Yeah? So, yeah, back at 10 past. Back at 10, right. Like my dominant thing before my hotel, I feel like my mind for it because I need to those things is like
Again. Did you manage to find work about you're right with that.
It's okay.
How do I get into the Vevox?
Onto
Vevox.
oh the VVOX. Well, either just open a new browser. Oh, no, I thought you had it open there. No, so if you open a new browser, or you can use your phone and just use the QR code. We are going to be doing VVOX. If you just put it into yes, if you just put VVOX in there.
Is the app or the login or what's just go to
Just
search,
go
yeah?
to that, yeah. it'll pop up. Here you go. So if you go on there, and then it'll ask you for the ID, session ID.
Yeah.
So if you put that number in there,
Or just
yeah,
oh,
then that'll take you to our VVOX thing. Yeah. So 187 063 241, and then join.
yes. Oh, thank you.
That's not when I drive them go sound like Seattle. Nah. That's all my son.
is just for you. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay, so I'd just like us to think a little bit about, now that you've had a little play on the electronic recording system and we've been thinking a little bit about how they're set up and used, what do you think are some of the benefits and some of the potential limitations of electronic recording systems, as opposed to back in my day, a filing cabinet and a pen and paper? It only works when it works.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Like-
technology.
Yeah, well, I've got no Wi-Fi.
Yes. So I guess that's both a benefit and a limitation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So back in my day, lock, cabinet, I had to be in the office.
Do I have the key?
I had to have the key, and I could do it. So one of the benefits is that so long as you've got Wi-Fi, you can work on the system. But if you ain't got Wi-Fi, you can't work on the
No.
system. Yes. Angela?
Everybody's got access to it that needs to. It's readily available.
Yes. So it's much easier for other people to have access to records if it's online. Yeah. Sorry, was there a hand? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, even though there is high security in terms of encryption, but there is still that chance of getting tampered and doctored on top of it, or the data can be lost at any point in time.
Yes, so there are, security is very tight, obviously, around electronic recording systems, but there is always the potential risk of data leaks or whatever. There's also the issue of, ordinarily, although you can access electronic recording systems so long as you have Wi-Fi, usually you don't fill it in whilst you're with the person. Yeah? So that means when you're, and as social workers, you'll be collecting quite a lot of information often about the people that you meet. There's a process whereby you're probably going to need to make some notes until you're then able to put it on the system. So there's the whole security thing of your notes then, and what you do with them and how you protect those as well before you even put it on the system.
You go.
Yeah.
Yes. Come on.
All right. Yeah. It can be an evidence, digital evidence as well for the due diligence, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So what we've seen in terms of recording practice over the years is it has become a means of accountability where managers, regulators can check that you're doing the things that you should be doing within your casework. So that's certainly a benefit.
But does it, like, if there is a problem like that has been investigated, or whoever is being referred to, and does it stand in the court as an evidence? This is an evidence in the court as well. Like, if
Yes.
in any way it has to go to the coroner or whatever.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Ultimately, in some areas of practice, some of you will be in court a lot, depending on where you practice. And there's always the potential for those case records to be for you to be cross-examined about your records.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So exciting. But it's also quite scary, really. Because quite often what social workers do is prioritise the other stuff as opposed to the recording. the administrative stuff. But it is one of the benefits.
Yeah, I want
is
to put the NHS one. NHS, if you work, you enter in an EPR, that is document that stands out in the coronoscope, same way it does in the
yes, yes.
A benefit for me would be that I don't have to worry about my atrocious handwriting and spelling.
Yes, although a lot don't have spell checks.
I'll go with the writing then.
So for people who struggle with grammar, spelling, it might be that they then end up using a Word document, check it, cut and paste it in, which in some respects doesn't necessarily make the process much faster, which is one of the potential benefits that people think. Oh, electronic recording system is faster than finding a file, getting your pen out, writing it down, putting it away. Tipex, no Tipex needed, you've got a delete key. Yeah.
I think one of the major advantages will also be data portability. For example, you said somebody's record can be linked to their parents' record.
Yes.
That can mostly happen on a digital platform.
Yes.
Physically, that could be
It could be
very
lost.
troublesome.
Yes. So it does enable you, and next week we're going to be looking at systems theory. So in that, in the context of social workers, looking at people in the context of their social systems, electronic recording systems enable that because you can see. Obviously, those things have to be accurate, though. You know, if a link is made incorrectly, then that in some respects isn't very helpful. But potentially, there is the opportunity for you to very quickly then, and usually you can see, oh, so-and-so's related to someone, I can click on that and access their record. So maybe if I'm planning some work, I can see if somebody else is doing some work with that person, which can be helpful. Yeah.
Mine is a question. In case of corona cases, just as you mentioned, maybe you are taking a data or a report about someone and it gives you false information, maybe an incident or accident. It gives you
Misinformation.
Yes. Now, does it have a way of implicating you as a person? Maybe, does it have that
Well,
potential?
yes. So on each record that you put on the system, it will have your name against that record. So again, this brings us back to Saji's point around, in terms of accountability and diligence, managers, regulators can see if there's a significant error, where that error's come.
So in a scenario, you don't know this person. It's just an accident that happened.
So
how do you...
managers will look at recording systems for a whole range of reasons. It might be about looking at trends, looking at waiting lists, so a kind of strategic overview of the service. Or they may be checking that the people within their team or their area are meeting the expectations of the service. So like seeing people within the timescales that you should be seeing them, for example.
Putting it on calendar, where you're going to.
All of that stuff, yes, yes.
But then when we, like if, okay, we have taken a decision on behalf of, and then it's been challenged in the court. So this can be the evidence how we come into that conclusion or decision.
Yes, yes. So we're going to think a little bit about that. I mean, just to say in terms of what the evidence shows, in terms of research done about electronic recording systems, social workers are not altogether loving electronic recording systems. So there are a lot of frustrations. Things like access, you know, there's a glitch, I've typed it all up and then it hasn't saved, so I've got to do it again. Or things don't, or where's the right place? That's the other thing. They're complicated systems where sometimes people say, I have to put the same piece of information in that box and I have to put it in another box. That's not a helpful system. And what they've found is that most electronic recording systems have been designed by managers and senior managers. So they've been designed with those people's needs in mind and not the needs of the workers who spend a large proportion of their day using them. So they're not always intuitive or logical or easy. Yeah. So it'll be interesting when you go on shadowing to maybe ask the social worker that you're shadowing about their experience of the electronic recording system that they use. And I would guess that a lot of them would have some gripes and some grizzles about it. Yeah. So, thinking about how important recording is, and that it might end up in the court arena, I want to introduce this idea of good recording practice in terms of recording factually. Okay. So most of what you record should be objective fact. However, as social workers, you will be required to make judgments and form opinions. Those judgments and opinions should be clearly based in the facts. Okay, so that makes the recording process, or can make the recording process a little bit challenging. So we're going to do a little VVox poll now. So if you're not on VVox, use the QR code or type VVox into your browser and pop the ID in and get in, because I'm going to ask you, I'm going to present some statements and I want you to respond whether it's fact or opinion. It's like a game show. Yeah. Sort of. Not that much like a game show, but there's no prizes. So I can see, it's very whizzy, I can see there's only 5 people on there, so I'm just going to wait for a few more people to get on. The first statement is up there, but I know some of you are still getting on, so we've jumped right up, 21. Ooh.
How are we meant to answer that though? Because if she said it, it would be a fact.
You're answering, is that record, is that fact or is that opinion? Have a go. Well, 15 out of 22. So is this statement, is it fact or is it opinion? Okay? Okay. I know some people might still be getting on. You can practice on the next one. Okay. So we've got a split decision here. So, it is an opinion. How do you know, A, that Jane is depressed, or B, that it's unemployment that has caused the depression? That is an opinion. Okay? So, how might, using your imaginations, how might you rewrite that to make it a clearer record?
Well, I read it as in that Jane has said. So, but you would have to say.
You would have to include that. Yeah. Yes. So you could. So the record would be factual if it said Jane stated she is feeling depressed and losing a job. Yeah.
I got it wrong. Because I read it as being unemployed is depressing Jane. If I'm going to write that, then I'm going to write it on the basis that she has stated that to me. If I was going to write my opinion, I would have wrote being unemployed appears to be.
Yes, but even if you write that, a good record would need to be really clear and to detail what in her appearance is leading you to the opinion that she's depressed.
Because how would I know?
Yeah? Because if you think about this ending up in a court arena, if someone says, well, how did you know? How did you come up with that? You'd have to say, well, because she struggled to make eye contact where she ordinarily would, so you would need to be really clear about the objective fact that's leading you to that opinion. Yeah? So, yes, so you would need to put, that Jane has stated, if that's where that information has come from. Okay? So we're getting it. Let's try next one. Okay. So this is the first incident of abuse to the child. What do we think? Fact or opinion? We're nearly there. Okay, right, I'm closing it. Oh no, a little flurry there. Opinion. Lucy. That we don't know about. Yeah? That one's a tricky one. That is a tricky one, I know that.
This sounds like a direct statement. It is a direct statement, so it's a fact. Because it says this is the first incident
But it's not.
to the child.
No, so the fact is it's the first known incident. Yeah? Because you don't know that there haven't been other incidents.
But if it's not recorded, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
And again, the person that
if you're saying this is the first incident of abuse to the child, so following your logic, right, that if that child has been abused before, if nobody's discovered that and it hasn't been noted anywhere, it didn't happen.
Yeah, because it's not recorded. Because we don't
Yeah, but it did actually happen.
Well, how do we prove that it did happen if it's not recorded?
But if the child then says there were disclosures or somebody else discloses, but you can't know, by writing that, you can't know categorically that this was the first incident. Yeah?
Imagine in court they would be like, the child's now said this, but
Yeah.
you throw it on this date that was the
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah. So this one is a tricky one because it reads as fact, but actually, yeah.
So I think in this case it's very tricky not to employ too much logic.
Never employ too much logic in my
because
module.
we just write something that we know we just save our own self, so that we don't say this is just like the philosophers would say, don't say something that is ambiguous.
Yes.
So just something that would save our own self, and then we document it properly so that we'll be able to defend it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Right. Next one. I saw Peter playing with his toys on my last visit. Yay! Yes. Well done. On the last visit, the living room was not safe for the children. Okay. Opinion. So, how could that record be improved? Use your imagination. Into that? Yes. 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 So you would need to describe what it was that was leading you to that judgment. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. That was an opinion. Yeah? Yeah? So you need to be writing in your record because of there was a knife on the table, there was this, there was that. My judgment is it was unsafe. Yeah? Good. The clothing in which Mrs. Smith had dressed the baby was not appropriate. Yay. Okay. So again, an example of how you could make that a better record. What the baby was wearing. what the weather was. So you've got to, so yes, you've got to say what the baby was wearing, but also the environmental context, haven't you? Because if she's wearing a woolly hat and a jumper, that's fine, unless it's like 37 degrees. Yeah? So you need to put that detail in to justify the judgment that you're making. This is a bit tricky, I think. Yeah, it's a bit of a one, this one, yeah. I mean, this one is a bit tricky because it is factual, but it's a really bad record. Well, yeah, because you're saying the only evidence I have. So you've provided the fact or lack of facts. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This one. So how could this one be improved? Because it is a bad record. We can certainly agree on that.
But there is no certainty here.
There's no certainty.
Would it be inappropriate to say there's no substance?
There's no certainty. How he was behaving. Yes. It's a bit fraught, really, because if you look at trying to describe something that you've observed that's leading to a judgment of this kind, it's really difficult. I remember, having parents contact a helpline and say, oh, I'm convinced little Johnny's using drugs because he's secretive, he's not communicating with me, all of these like behavioural things, which could be evidence of a whole range of things. Bullying, mental health difficulties. So you would have to list all of those kind of behavioural things that you noticed, really, and they would have to be quite a strong, maybe there's a background of drug taking or something before you arrived at that judgment. Otherwise you would just be, you might be saying about the smell, Okay. Oh, no. Ernest is happy in the care home. You got it. Yeah. So again, how could you improve that record? Maybe unstated. I mean, where it becomes challenging is when you have people who are non-verbal, or who lack capacity, because then you really have to key into those observable signs on which you're making that judgment, and what's your interpretation of those behaviours as well. So it becomes even more important, some of those observational skills that you need. Well, you would have to say, what is it that you're noticing that is making, you might say, he smiled, he made eye contact, and I saw him talking to other residents. Therefore, it appears he's happy. Yeah? But you have to include the detail, on which that judgment's made. Okay. So this idea of recording fact and opinion is really fundamental to good recording practice. And it's something that, in my experience, is something that students can find quite difficult, because it can feel quite counterintuitive when you're writing up to write in that way, particularly with some of the stuff you're going to be doing in this module, where the only information you get is what's reported by the person in front of you. So you end up having to write quite a lot. You know, Jenny stated that, Jenny explained that, you know, her relationship with her mum is difficult, for example. Because you don't know, you ask my mum and she'll go, oh yeah, we get on great. You know, well yeah, we all have to. Now unless you're in the kind of setting where you'd spend a lot of time, maybe you have, you know, observations of me and my mum together, yeah? So I noticed that actually, you know, let's say I said, I don't know, my mum's incredibly controlling, okay? My mum would have a very different view of that. Now, unless you spend a lot of time with me and my mum and saw the interaction, you're never going to know, you're not going to know what the truth is, are you? You're just going to know what you've been told from a particular lens, a particular perspective. So it can feel a bit counterintuitive to keep writing in that way. Jenny stated this and she said that. But it's really important that you're clear that's the basis of this information that I've got, is that it's been self-reported. And it can feel sometimes like you're writing in a way where you're disbelieving somebody. That's not what I'm saying. It's not that you're disbelieving that information that's reported, but you're just being clear that's all I've got at the moment. Yeah? So you will have an opportunity as we go through the module to have a practice with recording. We'll do it all on charms. So a little bit later in the module, when you start interacting with doing some of the simulations with our impact members, you'll put the record on charms and then the record will be looked at by the person that you've spoken to and they will give you feedback on it. Okay, so it'll just be an opportunity for you to get a bit of feedback and get a bit more confident before you go out and practice. I think that's it. I think that's all I plan to cover today, which is pretty fortunate because we're just about 5 minutes from finish time. So tomorrow is evidence-based practice. So just to confirm, it is, I think one of the sessions that I've asked to be removed might still be showing on some people's timetables. We have 9:15 till 10:45 and then 11:15 till 12:45. There's no afternoon session tomorrow.
So say again, the first class is what time?
9:15. Yeah, so the usual pattern on a Tuesday morning. I managed to get them moved. And it's on this campus.
So the last,
It's on this campus, yes.
the last one has been moved to Thursday.
Thursday is... you haven't got a session Thursday. Yeah, you haven't got a session Thursday.
Even online?
No. The other week. Yeah. And I think they've come off your timetable. Yeah, I think so. But there's certainly, if you check out my timetable on the module, that's up to date.
Just to clarify, is it just this Thursday or all Thursdays?
No, just this Thursday. So yeah, in the main is every other Thursday. Yeah. If you're in any doubt, either your electrical calendar should be right, yeah. But also mine.
The best one to check is this one online, this time check.
That one or mine on Blackboard.
On Blackboard.
Yeah, which details like the titles of the session. Yeah, so I'll see you all in the morning. Make sure you either watch the presentation about evidence-based practice or if you hate presentations, do a bit of reading about it. Okay? Fabulous.